Now, because the world of drones is basically over, I have decided to buy myself this. Now, the truth of the matter is, it's got nothing to do with the fact that the world of drones is over. It's to do with the fact of I don't actually have myself a good ground-based vehicle to test equipment on. And I'm going to be making some content around some gimbals. We're going to be making some content around head tracking. So I thought it's about time I bought myself something that will get the job done. And that's what I'm going to show you here today. Now, I wanted to get myself a rock crawler. It is 1/10 in scale, and as you can see from the brand here, I've chosen to go with FTX. Now, before I spent my money, I did spend quite a bit of time looking through the different models, and I landed on 3 main brands. When you get up to this pricing, you're really talking about things such as FTX, Abyssma, or Traxxas. Now, Traxxas is really at the top end of the scale. I was really tempted to go with the TRX4 Land Rover edition. It is lovely. I would have loved to have chose it, but the price was substantially more than this. Over £200 more than the FTX model you see here. I also looked at models from Abyssma, which is the CR3.4. They have the Sherpa rock crawler. I was very tempted on that one, but in the end, I chose this because this really seemed to give the best bang for buck overall. And not only does it seem to be a reasonable quality model, from what I understand, but also there are lots of parts and upgrades available for it as well. Now, less talking and more unboxing is now necessary, and I will then show you what I've bought. Now, as I said, I spent a lot of time trying to do this, if I'm honest, and I kept going back and forth. And I would have loved to have gone for the Land Rover. I'll be honest, the Land Rover just looked amazing. But I can't justify £200. That is huge difference in cost. Now, what I ended up going for, and let me just pop this down, and then I will take it out and show you. I think if we pop this up here, you will see that I went for the Outback Tracker 1/10 scale. Not as easy to get out of the box as you might think. Okay, that's not going to work. Right there. There we go. You can see it there. 1/10 scale, Outback Tracker, FTX. I've gone with the white one, so that is the colour that you can see on the box there. If we flip it around to the back, you can see it's got some nice detail features as well, but for me, the real key on this was as follows. Decent motor and gear set out the door. Not perfect, but okay. It uses, I think this one uses a Hobbywing ESC. It's not the best in the world, and I am going to be upgrading that ESC to one from ISDT, because there is one that is highly recommended, which is only like £25. It had portal axles, it had high and low gearing, and it had the front and rear lockable diffs. It does come with a radio system as standard, but I intend to be upgrading that radio system in the future. We're going to be installing Express LRS with this, with the MT12 from Radiomaster. Now, we're going to do a bit of an unboxing. Hopefully, if we can figure out how to get the top off. Oh, the sticker on the back is holding. 1 second. The front one's come loose. But the back one hadn't. There we go. Right, I'm just going to pull this back a bit because my microphone is going to be in the way. Smacking myself in the face. Right, there you can see it inside the box. As I've said, this is 1/10 scale. It is very large. Here we have our radio controller. I'll pop that to the side. We'll look at that closer in a minute. We have our manual with a couple of bits in as well. Not sure what they are. We'll have a look at that as it moves through. And then we've got the model itself strapped in to the box at the bottom. So what we'll do is we'll lift that out and start the unpacking. There we go. And there it is. Free! Now, it has been quite some time since I have had a rock crawler. Have used them in the past. I've got the remote control here. We'll take a look at this in a minute. Labelled FTX RC. Their own transmitter. Does feel cheap. Not surprising considering the cost of the model. Okay, now, just to start peeling some of stuff off like this and work our way around it. Now, it is a 1/10 scale rock crawler. The first thing you'll notice is just how much movement there is in the suspension. We'll take a look at that whole piece in a minute. Underneath, we've got all of our running gear. On the top, we've got this nice area which is caged, and I actually chose it with this on purpose. If we go to the overhead, you can see you've got this big bay area here, and one of the reasons I chose that is I want this to be able to mount stuff onto, like gimbals and cameras, but I also want to put some inside as well. Now, working out how we actually get into this thing, we've got our badge on the front here. Now, I don't know, the clips are underneath there. Now, just showing you underneath, there's clips here and here and here and here. So what I'm going to do is just pop it on its side. I'm going to withdraw these, putting them safe. So 1, 2. I'm going to pop them on the desk over there out the way. That way they can't walk off. 3, 4. You don't have the quick release top on this like you do on the Traxxas. That has this quick release mechanism. This has your traditional pins. So if I now lift that, now the top starts to come free, but I'm going to have to be careful because there are connections and LEDs under this. So if we tip it backwards, you can start to see the inside of the unit itself. We've got the chassis, the metal chassis rails down there. We've got the plastic bumpers on the side, which is nice to see. They're not part of the top. We've got our ESC. I think that's the Hobbywing one. We've got our high and low gears. We've got our front and rear diff servo. We've got our motor up top here under this little engine cover, and the motor is located there. And then it looks like our steering servo is on the side here under this. Now, this is a bit of a different layout to one that I'd looked at before. When I was looking at them on YouTube, the steering servo was along the front there, not under this plastic cover here. So that's interesting. That servo also looks a little bit different. So we'll take a look at that in a second as well, at what they've included, just in case there's been any changes. And then over this side here, you've got your receiver box. And then on the lid, I think there's a lighting controller. So there's this wiring harness that comes up here that goes to there. And if I just come backwards, you can see it almost looks like a PWM receiver, if I'm honest. There's a box there, which seems to be a lighting controller, and there's a couple of extra spare connections on that as well, if we want to use them. There's also front and rear lights on this model. You can see there and there, which is nice to see as well, all the way around. So if we just come back, there you go. You can see we've got the front and rear lights. I'm just going to monitor where this is plugged in so I can unplug this. So we've got it in the bottom port all the way along, just like that. So black towards the front, orange towards the back. The good thing with filming footage is it'll allow me to remember that, and I can look back and see. Now, just looking in a bit closer, so we do apparently have the WP1060 waterproof ESC from Hobbywing. It's not the best in the world, not the worst in the world. I am, though, going to be upgrading it to one from ISDT that has Bluetooth functionality, and apparently it is fantastic, and it's only like 25 quid. Now, this is fitted with a brush DC motor. You can see that there, and that's hiding under that there, which we'll look at in a second. Dean's connector on the battery, which I will be changing. And then on this side, we've got our receiver box, our front and rear servos for our lockable diffs. We're going to take a look in there in a minute too. And then up front, we've got our motor hidden under there, which is quite hard to see with this cover on the top. And then there's our big servo at the front for our steering. Now, if I just flip it over, you'll get a bit of an idea of the full setup on this. So you can see that steering is down in there. It's got a metal arm, and then there's a link arm that goes up to the front wheel on this side, which then goes to this side. So the two sides are completely linked there. You've then got your two arms over here and your single arm over here for your suspension. That is what holds everything in place. We have oil shocks down in here as well. You can see them located down in there. So springs and shock absorbers. Same setup on the back, although there's two arms on the back on each side rather than one. So if we move backwards, you can see you've got your two top link arms and your bottom two link arms. That's what's offering you suspension. Then you've got your telescopic drive shafts there and there. They are plastic, but they are telescopic. So you can see the movement on them. As I'm moving the wheels up and down, you can see this center part of the drive shaft just moves back and forth. And then really, that's all there is to show on this side here. You've got your two, again, shock absorbers on this side there. And then if I just flip it up, you can see there we've got our portal axles. So if you don't know what that is, it is that the output of the axle is set down lower than the shaft. I'll try and put some B-roll up to show it properly in a minute. And really, overall, that's pretty much everything you'd expect to find underneath a crawler like this. Now, just going back onto the bottom of the lid, you can see this little box down here, and this is the FTX light system. This has all of the outputs going around to control the LEDs. So you've got LEDs at the back there and there, LEDs at the front, and that's then going to give us that nice lighting effect. Now, as I mentioned, we are going to be transitioning this into ExpressRS in the future. As a result of that, I want to just have a quick look under the receiver area, because this is an area I don't know a lot about on this radio. I'm going to assume there's nothing too proprietary under here with regards to swapping out. It's not going to be particularly difficult to do regardless. We'll find a way of doing it. But I do just want to have a look at what I'm letting myself in for. Could there be any challenges? This is just a box that goes on the side there that offers some protection. No rubber seal on the bottom of that, so it's not really waterproof. There you can see we have a very traditional radio receiver, although this connector here does look a little bit proprietary. So we've got plus, minus, 1, 2, 4. I'm not 100% sure what the pinout on that is. That is heading off to... where is that going? So that is going to our lighting controller. Okay, so that is the connector that goes to our lighting controller. So looking at this, it is possible we're going to lose some functionality around that, which I'm going to have to take a look at. But then everything else is traditional 3-wire servo. So you got your 1 to 6 channels there, look. And that's going out on there. Nothing particularly shocking. Pretty easy. About the only thing we're going to have to look at is how we handle the lights. Now, something I will say, trying to put this all back together, this is not waterproof. The cables go through a little hole down there. We can see that. The radio is shoved into there. But really, there is no rubber gaskets here. I would call it splash proof. I would certainly not call this waterproof. I think if you were to go underwater on this, you are going to get yourself into trouble with regards to that. It's just something I thought I would mention. Not terrible, but certainly just something to be aware of. Now at the front, I've removed 2 screws that were here, and hopefully this means I can remove this cover. It does. There, that shows us the main steering servo there. Not a lot of info on that. According to the specifications, it is a 7 kilo servo. No, actually 25 kilo servo. Oh, it's an Entronix. I can't even say it. Entronix 25 kilo metal geared waterproof servo up front. And then we've got our motor is by FTX. You can see it there. Does it say how many turns this is? High torque. Can't quite read it, but fairly easy to get to there if we wanted to change it. And then that's just covered by this little cover That slides over like that, and then you just have a screw that goes into each side like that to hold it in place. Now, just before we get it out and look at real world use, I just want to show you a couple of other things. The top suspension mount here, where it mounts on, you can see that they're on little bearings there. You can see that there are pins that go into the frame. Seems solid enough, no major complaints. There's a bit of movement there on either side, which you expect to have because it's on like a little ball joint, but that's where it mounts there. If I then just bring you to the back, you can see the same here. So the rear suspension mounts up onto this solid plastic back end. If I just zoom out to show you, you can see we've got this metal structure for the frame that runs down and through with the plastics mounted on top. All of these feel nice and solid. You then got your bumper mounts at the back. All of this, I believe, is fairly well replaceable. And overall, it all looks nice and good. Now, one last thing I just want to quickly mention is the battery bay size. Now, when I was looking to buy this, I could not find good information out there on what size battery this bay will take, how big. So what I'm going to do is just measure it for you. There may be a standard in this that I don't know about, but just so you know, this battery bay is 49.5 by, not the easiest for me to get a measurement into. I'm going to go 88. 49.5 by 88 seems to be the battery size. It comes with Dean's connectors on, like you've seen here. Now, I have ordered a battery with this kit, although I seem to have lost it. Let me just find where that's vanished to. Here it is. Now, I've gone for a 2S LiPo. You can run this on 2 or 3S. I chose 2S, 5,000 milliamp hour. I wanted something that was going to give me plenty of use time, but I did fancy going for a LiPo rather than lithium ion. That is the battery we've got there. It is a hard shell battery, and that, I think, with Dean's connector on there, I think will fit straight into the battery bay. As I said, I did have some trouble figuring out exactly what size I should be going for. Yes, that fits in very, very nicely. Flip that over like that. So then you would simply strap it in just like that. And then we've got the Dean's connector there. Now, I am going to be swapping these connectors for XT60s. Don't like these connectors. Never have done. XT60 is what I use on everything, so I'll be doing that off camera in a minute. Okay, now included with the kit is their own radio system. It's called the FTX 2.4 gigahertz digital proportional RC. It is a radio controlled car style radio, so you have your steering here. No rubber or grip on any of this. This is just hard plastic. It's okay, but it's certainly not great. Just a wheel effect. You then got your trigger, your traditional back and forward, located down there. Then there is a micro USB port over here. There is then various switches. So there's an on and off up there. We've got some buttons up here for channels. So they are channel 5 and 6, I think it is. Channel 5 and 6 up there. Ooh, under here, we have found some more controls. There are trims as well as servo reversing switches under there. You've got some trims and then your reverse switches. That's cool. And then we've got a channel 4 there, a channel 3 button there. So that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So 6-channel radio in total. It's powered by 4 AA batteries, which simply slot into the bottom down there. It's going to do everything you need to do, but it's certainly not going to be the best. I'm going to be trying it with this radio, but I will be transitioning into Express LRS in the future. Okay, so ready for the first power on. I'm going to power the radio up, and you can see a little blue LED comes on there. Now, I'm going to be really careful here. There's a switch underneath on one side. It is this side here. I'm going to lift it up just in case something kicks in that I'm not expecting. Now, as I've powered it up, the rear lights have come on. So just to show you, we've got the rear lights on. I can't tell. I don't think the front ones are on. That's the top button, which I think is the lock-in diffs. That must be the speed option. I can hear the servo changing. Oh, headlights on. If I go to the middle position, they flash. And if I go to the back, they're off. And then that's on full. That's really cool. And then turn them off. Now, what happens when we drive? Now, I need to lift this up a little bit. I'm going to lift. I'm going to pull the trigger. So nothing happens there. If I put the headlights on full. Wow, so I've just noticed something. On the back, when you reverse, ready? So when you go forward, look, the lights dim. So brake lights on. Brake lights off. I'm looking at my screen. So if you're wondering what I'm looking at a screen there. And then if I go backwards, you get the white reverse lights. That's cool. So if we go, let's just see the 2 speeds. So I'm going to hold it a minute. So that's 1. So that's low. That's high. And then we've got the lockable diffs on the top here. So with the diffs locked at the moment. So let's have a look at. Okay, so that's now locked. Let me just feel the front. So the fronts are free. And then the fronts are locked as well. I'm just going to power it down. I don't want it heading off across the bench on its own. That is very cool. Now, what I'm going to do is do a bit of playing, do a bit of testing. We'll get it set up and we'll get it outside. Okay, so it's time to get it out and about. Here you're going to see a mix of footage from the crawler on its own, the crawler with a camera mounted on the top, some external footage, and then towards the end, the crawler with a gimbal fitted and me recording it directly in FPV view on the Avatar HD system. Here you can see it fitted with the XF Robot gimbal that is basically identical to the Caddx gimbal, as well as an Avatar HD Moonlight VTX on the bonnet. This isn't a permanent setup, this is a temporary one. I am going to be mounting this inside the unit later in the year. Now, just to quickly show you how fast this is on grass, I just gave it a bit of a rip around here. The battery wasn't fully charged at this point. It was about 50%, so it's not running at full speed, but as you can see, there is plenty of speed on this when you want to push it. Okay, so to share with you some of my thoughts on the Outback Tracker, as a non-crawler user, as someone who's got back into this because I haven't done it for a very long time, I'm really pleased with this. I'm overall very happy. There are little things that I think can be improved, and I'll talk about them in a minute, but it does a great job. It only really struggled on one really big incline that I tested it on, and that's on the stock tyres. I may be able to improve things with modifications moving forward. As you saw in the video, pushing it over rocks and boulders, it was fine, although there are some things that probably need improvement. One sort of behaviour that I've noticed on this is it does like to tip over, especially if you're on an incline side on. So if you're going along a ridge or something like that, it needs a bit more low down weight in the unit. It doesn't help that I had this on the top, obviously, because that battery's going to move around. And as I've mentioned already in the video, I intend to mount all of this inside. I'm still not sure what I'm going to do 100% yet because this plastic isn't 100% clear. I'm not sure how the video is going to be through that. We'll discuss that in a future video. But the weight definitely needs to be down a bit. Widening the track might help, so some bigger offsets on wheels if you swap the wheels out, or put some adapters on to bring the wheels out further. Obviously, that's going to widen the track and that's going to help with stability as well. Probably a combination of weight and a slightly wider track will do it. But with that will come some issues. Already I've noticed on some of the bigger rocks and boulders, the wheels are catching the bodywork. You can see it there. There isn't enough space under the arches here for the wheels that are even fitted. I think what it needs is this being trimmed and maybe like a plastic outside arch fitted. I don't know if that's an accessory that's available. I haven't looked yet. Maybe I need to 3D print something. It definitely wants this trimming further to give more space on the wheels. And if you're going to then widen the track, have a larger spaces on the wheels or bring them out, you're going to need a bigger arch for that as well. Both the front and the back, this is a problem. You can see there, it comes down very easily on the bodywork. Hasn't caused any damage, but it makes a rather horrible noise and it's really just not ideal. So I think outer arches will definitely help. As I've said, I am also going to be converting this to ExpressLRS in the future. And if you're interested in seeing that, please do make sure you are subscribed. Overall, though, out the box, I'm really pleased. And there's going to be more content, not necessarily just on the Rover, but sort of using it for this kind of thing with FPV on board as well. It was incredibly fun actually driving this with the FPV view on the front. I hope the footage you've seen sort of showed that as well. At one point I did mount a camera on the top. At one point I did have it on the bonnet. And yeah, it's just a different experience to FPV quads flying. I would actually love to have this where you sort of have a dual setup with a quad on the top that you can sort of drive it out and then fly off and then try and land it back on and drive it back. Might make a video about that in the future. Anyway, that's it. I really like it. I hope the video's been useful. If it has, please do let me know what you think in the comment section. If you'd like to support the channel, please do consider checking out the links to my Patreon as well as buy me a coffee. It is only through the support of my patrons we're able to keep buying things like this, because I did buy it. Wasn't a review product. This was bought and paid for. And if you'd like to support us to keep doing things like this in the future, please do consider checking it out. I want to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. We would not be able to do this without your support. Anyway, that's it for me on this one. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. I will speak to you soon.